The newest rumors were spreading through the galactic hub. A human male had somehow found his way into the intergalactic chat room and was speaking with an Exian female. This was unprecedented for humans, who were thought to be savage, belligerent beings from the dead world called Earth. The blue-green-skinned Nexian in question stared at her blank screen in shock as the human's message lit before her. The weird, blocky alphabet of his language translated into shimmering Nexian glyphs by her AI assistant's hello there was. When the song began, "I'm Simon from Earth. How are you doing?" Kaz's heart skipped a beat. She knew she had to report this breach right away and that it was highly illegal to interact with humans. But she was curious to know what it would be like to speak with one of these mythical creatures. Thin blue fingers lingered over the holographic key. Then, almost without her conscious control, they started to type. "Hello, Simon from Earth. I'm Kurtz, and I'm surprised to see a human here." Before she could decide otherwise, she sent the message, and her heart was thumping with anticipation for his response. Kurtz. Huh. That's a nice name. And yes, I'm kind of astonished to be here as well. I was just playing around with this new quantum communicator when, all of a sudden, I'm having a conversation with a real-life extraterrestrial. This is incredible, even though Quaz couldn't help but smile. She believed that humans were very different from the grim warriors, yet there was something charming about his enthusiasm and easygoing friendliness. "I could say the same to you," she typed back. "Talking to a human is not something I ever thought I'd do well, but I'm glad you are." Talking to you, I mean. Isn't it unusual for a male to have a conversation with a stunning extraterrestrial girl? She felt her cheeks turn purple, and she knew she should because the idea was so ridiculous and risky. She found herself typing, her heart fluttering in her breast. "You haven't even seen me, don't need to, I." She realized that every time she extended this communication put her at risk, but she couldn't seem to control herself. Simon was just so charming. Maytel, call it human intuition, Quaz, bit her lip to contain a grin. This was crazy. She was flirting with a human, and if anyone found out, it would only make it more thrilling. Here she was, a menial Nexian data clerk. Attracting the attention of the data center was virtually deserted at this hour, with the blue glow of hollow screens illuminating the faces of the workers. A dashing human rogue. She looked about stealthily to make sure none of her co-workers were paying attention to her. The reaction was instant. "I'd like that. I'd like that a lot." And Kaz's breath caught. What was she doing? This was more than just surfing the net. The few other Nexo on the night shift coast clear. She turned back to her screen. "Maybe you'll have to see for yourself sometime." A flirtatious conversation that was getting dangerous. She couldn't really meet him, but the idea had become unpleasant, and she couldn't get rid of it. The experience of seeing him and speaking with him face to face was both exciting and disturbing. She shook slightly and typed, "It's late here, but maybe we could talk again sometime." "Count on it, Blue. I'll be here same bat time, same bat channel," laughing even though she knew he was lying. With one last sly look around, she realized what he meant. Leaning back in her chair, her heart pounding, she signed off on Simon's final message, which lingered on her screen. "Sweet dreams. Please chat to you soon." What had she gotten herself into, exactly? A covert contact with a human, with all the hazards involved. It was reckless beyond belief. However, as she walked home, the busy, neon-lit streets of Nexo City passed by in a rush, and she couldn't contain the excitement or the smile on her face. Simon from Earth was her new, exciting, and dangerous buddy. Where would this lead? Only the following 2 weeks were by in a whirlwind of covert conversations and smiles behind closed doors. Every night, as soon as her shift finished, KZ would race home, her heart thumping with excitement. Stars knew, but one thing was certain. Her life was about to get a whole lot more fascinating. Every night when she logged onto the quantum communicator, Simon would always be there waiting for her. They spoke about everything and nothing. He told her about his life on Earth, his work as a pilot, his friends, and the peculiar traditions and customs of In Return. His people told her stories of their own planet, which included the serene beauty of the luminous fungus forest and the magnificent, crystal-like spires of Nexo City. However, more than that, they talked about themselves, their aspirations, and their dreams. As the days passed into weeks, KZ found herself falling in love with Simon, this odd, fascinating person from across the stars, despite her misgivings that he would never listen to her and that she could tell him anything. Occurring all the same, Simon texted me one night after a particularly lengthy and personal discussion. "I don't know how I'll make it happen, but I simply need to see you," since her heart skipped a beat when she saw him. She responded back, hesitant to press the letters since she knew it would be forbidden if anybody found out. "I know. Believe me. But I can't help how I feel, KZ, and I believe you feel the same. Simon, we can't take the risks." "Manner, don't you?" she said, closing her eyes and taking a sharp breath. He was exactly as insane as it seemed, going against everything she had ever been taught. Nevertheless, she typed, "Yes, I do," and finally acknowledged that, how can we make this work? It was a lot to ask, but as Kaz stared at the words that promised a future she'd never dared to dream of, she realized that she did. She trusted him. "Work, leave that to me, Blue. I've got a plan. Just trust me, okay? Trust me." She wrote a smile that spread across her face, trusting Simon, even as her heart raced with excitement and anxiety. "Let's do this." The plan, as it turned out, was simple but bold. Simon used his abilities as a pilot would unintentionally launch his aircraft into Nexian orbit, and Kuz, utilizing her role as a data clerk, would stage a problem with the border sensors so he could pass through unnoticed. They would then meet at an isolated landing pad outside of the city, where it was dangerous and reckless. But as Kurt stood on that windswept landing pad and saw Simon ship a little, sleek object that was so different from the massive Nethan vessel's touchdown, Simon realized he just had one Earth day left before he would have to jump back to avoid notice. The hatch hissed open, and she knew it had been worth it. He was tall and broad, with short dark hair and eyes the color of the oceans on Earth. He was smiling the same arrogant, charming grin she had pictured countless times, and as he stepped closer, she said, "Wow, you're even." More gorgeous than I was, but before he could say anything more, she was in his arms, her lips pressed to his, in a kiss that was amazing and weird at the same time. They talked and explored the city together throughout the day, and Kos and the impossible, incredible thing blooming between them. But all too soon, it was time for him to leave. They stood there on the other side of the universe, laughing and holding each other tight for a few precious hours. The landing pad with their hands clasped and their foreheads touching. "This isn't the end," Simon whispered, his voice rough with emotion. "I'll find a way back to you, Kurtz," she nodded. "I know you will, and I'll be waiting always," she said, tears streaming down her cheeks. And then he was gone, his spacecraft vanishing into the stars. She remained there for a very long time, her heart bursting with excitement. It was insane. It was impossible. Yet it was true. It was hers, and she didn't know what the future contained. Days stretched into weeks, and weeks became months, and still, she would cherish this day and this love for the rest of her life. It was the first time that a human and an Exan were brought together against all odds, and it was only the beginning. Simon Kuraz tried to cheer her up and hold on to the memory of that wonderful day, but as time passed, doubts started to surface. Had it all been a dream, a lovely, unattainable fantasy, or worse, had something actually happened to her? She plunged herself into her work in an attempt to block out the nagging anxiety, but even as she lost herself in the streams of data, a part of her was constantly scanning, always looking for him. The thought kept her up at night, tossing and turning in her bed. Anything from him, it was during one of these late-night sessions that she felt things alter. She was working in a complicated data matrix when she felt a ping, and her pulse leaped to her throat when she saw it was a message from Simon Kuraz. Quara's blood raced cold. She had always known the risks. But to see how things have gotten difficult here on Earth, and that there are people who know about us who don't like the notion of a human and an Exan together, makes me feel urgent and restless. The message said, "I have to lay low for a while, but I promise I'm working on a plan, a way for us to be together permanently. Just hold on, Blue, hold on for me." KZ was left staring at the screen as the message stopped. Screen. Her mind racing with ideas for a strategy, what kind of plan to make, and how long to wait. But even as these thoughts raced through her head, a great determination took root in her heart. She would wait, she would hold on for Simon, and she would suffer their shared love. As the month went on, Karaz poured herself into playing the ideal ex-Othian. She put in a lot of effort, kept her head down, and never gave anyone any cause to think that her heart belonged to a human. At night, though, she spent her alone in her own space. She would reach inside her quarters and remove the tiny, crystalline data chip Simon had given her during their brief encounter. It had a single image of the two of them grinning and cuddling up to each other. She would soon whisper to the image following Simon's lines, "Face with a trembling finger, but I know that we'll be together again soon, my love." Then, one ordinary day, everything changed again. Kaz was at her station sorting through an especially thick batch of trade data when a message appeared on her screen. But this was Cora's heart leaped as she read the coordinates that followed numbers that led to a lonely area of Nexian space. This was it, the moment they'd been waiting for, and with shaking hands she cleared the message. It was no ordinary message. It was from Simon, and it included only 2 words. "It's time." Her schedule, pretending to be ill to her supervisor, and then, with her heart racing, she headed to the spaceport. The trip seemed to take an eternity, with Kaz's small ship moving painfully through the stars. But eventually, after a series of jumps and course adjustments meant to throw off any. When she reached the right spot, her hands trembled, barely daring to breathe, as the airlock hissed open, revealing Simon's ship Kuraz. Like a promise fulfilled, he was as attractive and energetic as the day they'd first met. She clutched to him, tears of joy flowing down her face forever as she repeated the word of vow. "But how, Simon, how can we make it work?" He muttered, drawing her into his arms, saying, "My cuz, I'm so sorry it took so long, but we're together now, and this time it's forever." He led her deep within his ship to a chamber she had never seen before, while he smiled that same roguish grin that had won her heart so many years ago. "I told you I had a plan, didn't I? Come on, there's something I need to show you." When the door opened, KZ gasped to discover a brand new type of spacecraft, unlike anything she had ever seen. It was sleek and silver, with lines that alluded to both human and extraterrestrial design. Simon proudly described in his speech how it combined the greatest features of all of our worlds quickly enough to surpass any pursuit, be resilient enough to withstand any hardship, and, most importantly, have a brand new jump drive that can transport us anywhere in the cosmos at any time. Kuraz stared, scarcely believing what she was hearing. "But we're free, Kaz. Free to go." He grasped her hand, his eyes gleaming with love, and he made a promise. "What say you, Blue? Are you ready for the adventure of a lifetime? There will be no more hiding, no secrets, just you and me and the entire damn cosmos at our feet." Squeezing his hand constantly, Kuz gazed at this guy who had traveled across galaxies and defied fate to be with her, and she knew with an absolute certainty that she would follow him wherever he went. With that, they boarded their spacecraft, this vessel of their shared destiny, and launched themselves into the boundless expanse of space, prepared to face whatever the future held for them both. Finally, for all eternity and always, Years had passed, and a love had traversed the stars. Since that tragic day that Quetz and Simon had taken off into the unknown, their hybrid spacecraft has taken them to every part of the universe. They have seen obstacles that would have crushed less resilient souls and witnessed unimaginable wonders. Yet despite it all, their love has endured. Kaz stood on the Galaxy Hub's observation deck, gazing out at the whirling nebulas and brilliant star systems, and she couldn't help but grin at the recollections that it had been Simon's idea to travel here. Had remained constant, a shining beacon leading them ever onward, Kuz had been reluctant at first, the old concerns resurfacing. But now, it's time to show the world what true love looks like. With his eyes flashing with that familiar blend of mischief and determination, he remarked, to the very heart of the intergalactic community, it's time. Like ghosts, yet Simon had grabbed her hand and touched her as firmly and steadily as they always had. He had said, "Always trust me, Blue," and she had responded with all of her heart. Now they were strolling hand in hand through the busy hub hallways while dodging the looks they received. As they reached the center atrium, Kaz noticed a familiar face in the crowd. It was Xylar, her old friend, and the whispers that trailed after them allowed them to stare, think, and murmur that she was proud of their love, proud of everything they had conquered to be together. Supervisor from the data center, whose eyes opened upon seeing her, looked from Kuraz to Simon and back again. He spoke in a tone that mixed shock and incredulity, asking, "Is it true that a human being can feel love and pride?" Whispering through the throng like a physical force. "Yes," she responded, her voice strong and clear. "This is Simon, my mate, partner, and love." Xylar gazed at him, his mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. "Simon and I were proof that love has no bounds," she continued, recalling those exact words from so long ago when she'd first dared to dream of this day. A wave, but how Xylar managed at last an Exian and a human, it's unheard of. Kuz smiled. "We're the future," she exclaimed, her voice echoing to every corner of the atrium. A future where love is the only thing that can oppose boundaries, species, distance, or force in the cosmos. She looked up at Simon and saw the pride and love beaming in his eyes. Law that counts. The whispers had become a roar, a clamor of surprise and astonishment, and yes, even a few cheers, knowing full well that their tale would catch on like wildfire and become the hub's talk for months or even years to come. That was not their intention. Rather, they came to demonstrate that their love was a magnificent reality to be enjoyed rather than a secret shame to be kept hidden. As they returned to their ship hand in hand, Kuraz felt a wave of peace wash over her. Kuraz knew that they would face everything together because they had confronted the universe and expressed their love without fear or hesitation. "I love you, Simon." And as they got ready to launch themselves back into the stars in preparation for whatever new adventures awaited them, they did it. They shut the door of their ship, the engines roaring to life underneath them as she muttered, falling into his embrace forever and always. "I love you too, Quaz," he murmured, planting a kiss on her forehead to the end of the universe and back again. As they launched into the boundless reaches of space, Ketz believed that they would overcome any obstacles because they always had each other, a human and an alien, two hearts beating in unison, a love that began with a fortuitous encounter across the stars. They had developed into a power capable of altering the world itself. Their tale had become legend, spoken in every galaxy corner about the human and the Nexian who had dared to love, showing the universe the true meaning of love. As their spacecraft soared across the limitless sparkling expanse of courage, it was a story that would remain long after she and Simon had changed to stardust, serving as a reminder to everyone who heard it that real love was the most powerful force of all. Among the stars, the universe Quaz and Simon clutched each other tightly, prepared to face whatever the future contained. Subscribe to watch more amazing sci-fi stories.